Chapter 2. Resurgence. Items on her vanity shifted as the concussion was enough to shake several bottles and dislodge dust from the ceiling. Lillian immediately jumped up and raced to the door with Alondra close behind. The hallway was thick with smoke, but surprisingly the ladies didn't choke as they breathed it in. The party was in pandemonium as the great hall echoed below with screams, cries, and yells. Lillian and Alondra cautiously made their way downstairs, feeling along the wall for the banister. Then suddenly the smoke was whisked away like it was being sucked up by a giant wind spinner. But instead of disappearing, it coalesced to form a message of two horrifying words. Zoldyne lives. Lillian raced down the stairs. She used the height advantage of the stairs to locate her dad in the hysterical crowd who was now exiting the great hall through any door they could find. "Dad!" Lillian shouted over the noise. "Dad!" "Lillian!" King Harry pushed his way through the crowd towards the stairs. He met her 3 stairs from the bottom and embraced his daughter tightly. "Oh, Lilypad, thank the Fae you're okay." Normally, the king's use of her nickname from childhood would put a smile on her face, but only concern lingered there now. "What happened? What was that?" Lillian asked, looking over her shoulder. Most of the guests were either outside or calming down, now realizing the threat was empty. "It appears another rogue Danian snuck into the party and released a shock bomb. Harmless, really, but still gets the job done. Panic and chaos." "How did a rogue get in here?" Lillian was stunned. "That's what I plan to find out." The king turned and shouted for his advisor. "Henry!" A shorter, stocky man raised his hand and weaved his way through the remaining guests. "Right here, sire." "Henry, please spread the word to the guests that things are under control and the party will resume shortly. Are there any injured?" "Minor scrapes or bruises from the initial chaos, sire, but nothing the fairies can't handle." "Good. Make sure no one leaves until we account for everyone on the list. We'll have to interrogate them eventually, which I'm not fond of, but I don't want to ruin the celebration. We'll show them just how ineffective their ploy was." "Yes, sire." "Tell the fairies I may have need of their service, and have Grayson put up the barriers." Henry nodded his head and left to do the king's bidding. The king turned back to his daughter. "Sweetheart, I am so sorry they ruined your birthday party." "Don't worry about it, Dad. It was just the icing on the cake. I'll be fine." Do you think it would be terribly rude if I left my own party?" "I'm sure if the birthday girl slipped out for a bit, I could cover for her," the king said with a wink and gave his daughter a big hug. "Just don't be long because, and you didn't hear it from me, your mom has another one of her cake creations to bring out." Lillian groaned a little. Her mom, Snow White, had always made it a point to make her children's birthday cakes personally. They were okay most of the time, edible at least. The times when she incorporated some magic for flair were when things got out of hand. One time, she tried to enchant a cake for Andrew's 8th birthday. It was supposed to sing birthday merriment once the candles were lit. Instead, it leapt off the table, almost catching the tapestries on fire while trying to eat him. It was definitely something one doesn't forget. Lillian headed back up the stairs. She just needed some time alone to breathe and compose herself. She went back past her room and down another corridor to the right. Past another couple doors, there was a column that looked like all the other columns except that it moved. That was one of the good things about living in a castle. There was always some secret way to get out somewhere. This particular passage would take her back to the back of the castle, close to the woods, a favorite place of Lillian's. When she finally opened the other side of the passage, she had to squint her eyes against the sun beaming down. Even before her eyes adjusted, she traversed the terrain with ease just as she had before, even in the dark of night. Not too many people ventured this far behind the castle because of its close proximity to the former Drod border. The dilapidated barrier wall was still a good half-stay walk away, but superstition was always closer. Over the last few years, there were rumors of a white ghostly figure with one red eye that roamed the woods. Story goes, it was a lost Drodic soul that had forfeited its life during the Great Battle and hadn't realized its death had come, still looking for freedom. Because its death had come before the true release of Zoldyne's power, it was doomed to stay close to the magic that had imprisoned it for so long. Forever wandering the forest, free from one gloomy grasp only to fall into another. Or so the story goes. Lillian didn't believe in such nonsense. She had never seen the ghost, and she had been roaming these parts of the kingdom since she had discovered the passes when she was 8. She found the passage quite by accident, as discoveries often go. She was playing hide-and-seek with Alondra and had decided to hide behind a suit of armor standing beside a column. When she finally settled behind the legs, she felt a slight draft coming from the column. Lillian put her face up against the stone, and strangely, she could smell the woods coming through the small separation between the wall and pillar. And a small round pebble that didn't quite match with the rest of the stone wall tipped her off. Push, click. All it took was a small shove to slide the pillar back into the false wall, revealing a spiral staircase going both down and up. She chose down. There was just enough light from some cleverly disguised slots in the wall. She descended the stairs cautiously, occasionally overhearing conversations from various rooms adjacent to the tunnel. Another quick search of the dead end at the bottom of the stairs revealed another matching pebble that opened up the door to the world outside the castle. Since then, she had ventured here often until she knew almost every stick and stone the nearby forest contained. When she got to the small creek about 50 yards away, she slipped off her shoes and left them on her usual rock, hiked up her gown, and waded in the ankle-deep water that rippled by. The instant she stepped into the cool water, she felt her problems and tension start to wash away. The creek had no embedded magic, it was just soothing. A couple of small fish seemed to play a game of weaving between her feet, occasionally tickling her foot with their tails. She crossed over through the soft mud swishing between her toes and onto the soft moss-covered bank. Her hair, a dark brown that shimmered with gold, swayed playfully in the light breeze. She moved with her mother's grace as she slipped deeper into the forest. The canopy of trees slowly blocked out the sunlight, giving a warm glow to her surroundings. The forest inhabitants didn't always flock to her the way they usually did to her mother, but they didn't flee either as they recognized their old friend. Rabbits munched on vegetation, squirrels scurried up trees, with a treasure in their mouth. A pair of fawns and a doe looked her way before leaping off into the thicker part of the woods as if to say, "Come play with us." Yes, she knew her friends and surroundings well. She even knew the best thackleberry bushes to plunder and had become fairly adept at picking them. She hadn't gotten a scratch in nearly 2 years. The berries' delicious flavor of honey, blackberries, and cinnamon all rolled into one made them sought after by both people and animals. But they were hard to come by because their thorns carry a poison that makes the skin swell and itch 10 times worse than a sticklebug. Get too many scratches, and not only can you barely move, but also you become very nauseated. She found a regular patch of bushes and noticed the scarcity of berries. That's odd. The animals usually only eat the ones that fall on the ground. It was a pretty hard winter, though. Either way, she knew how to find more. She navigated her hand through the outside thorns like a weaver carefully threading a design. She felt a grouping of plump thackleberries, slowly plucked them from the stem, and pulled them out. Pulling them out was always much more difficult because now your hand was in a fist. Concentration was the key to not letting any distraction startle you. The slightest jerk could mean several scratches and dropping your reward. But as she had many times before, Lillian managed with nary a tickle and popped the first juicy, bright purple prize in her mouth. She continued on only a little farther, knowing she must not be too much longer in as her absence would most assuredly be noticed, especially when the cake was brought out. But she just wanted to visit her favorite place quickly before going back. She picked up her pace a little, careful not to harm her dress. After about a minute, she came into a clearing that separated the forest in half. Some time ago, the ground had split, causing a great chasm called Goblin's Gorge, effectively dividing the woods and allowing a tributary of the Minari River to run through. Someone, although she wasn't sure whom, had managed to create a narrow yet sturdy wooden suspension bridge joining the two parts of the woods. As far as she knew, time and people had forgotten all about it. And why should they remember? For there was a perfectly good stone bridge connecting the kingdom not too far away on the more traveled road where the chasm was not nearly as deep. That bridge, of course, had been built by the dwarves. Lillian still remembered the trepidation of her first step onto the wooden bridge. It had been scary at first, but now she knew every creak and groan of its wood and rope. Some of her favorite times were when she was on the bridge in the wind. Some people might have been fearful of falling, but standing on the bridge while the wind whipped around her made her feel like she was flying. So she walked out onto the weathered wooden planks with as much peace and ease as walking on any trail. She still tread carefully, respecting the old bridge, but relishing the sense of freedom that came over her body. She stopped right in the middle. The wind was just right today. Just enough for a sway, but not so much that she had to hang on. That was the perfect moment. She could close her eyes and imagine herself far away, high above her kingdom, soaring amongst the clouds. The feeling of gliding along the wind currents was almost indescribable. But suddenly something was wrong. The wind quickly picked up, twisting the old bridge awkwardly. Lillian opened her eyes just in time to see the bracing ropes passing her by. The planks beneath her feet had finally given way after all these years. Lillian was not flying anymore. She was falling.